So, the Rivers of America at the Magic Kingdom is really on the chopping block, and I want to talk about it because I think it is a huge mistake to take such an iconic part of this park away, and I have five distinct reasons why. Personally, I have more than five, but I have five that I think are some real core reasons why this should not be a part of the park that is completely demolished, completely just torn out in such a, radical change. Now, with this said, I'm not one of those people that's like, you can't get rid of Tom Sawyer Island, blah, blah, blah. Like, I understand that change and evolution is an inherent part of Disney parks. It is necessary. Something like Tom Sawyer Island is not the most popular attraction at Disney World, obviously, and even something like the Liberty Bell could use a refresh that gets people interested in it in a renewed way. But to completely take out the entire Rivers of America, I think is a massive mistake. So let's get into my reasons why. Reason number one is that it tears out a staple design element of Disney castle parks around the world. I cannot think of a Disney castle park that does not have a rivers. And it doesn't necessarily have to be the Rivers of America, like literally, branded as the Rivers of America. I believe it's Shanghai Disneyland that has a slightly different take on the rivers, even though they still have that sort of canoeing attraction where you can actually get in a canoe and go around the river. The same way that I think it's Disneyland used to. I don't know if Walt Disney World ever did that. But anyways, they do a little bit of a different take on it. There's like a pirate ship in their river, but they still have that rivers element. It is a massive part of the park design, of the flow of the park, of the temperature regulation of the park, which I'm going to get into in a minute. And just to take that out would completely radically change the design and the feel of Magic Kingdom compared to the other Disney parks. And I am a fan of every park having its own unique features, but there's also certain things that just make a castle park in the Disney parks chain. It would be like you wouldn't take Tomorrowland out. You wouldn't take the castle out. Why would you take out the river? It's just, to me, not in line with the branding of these castle parks. And it's just going to entirely change the flow in ways that I'm going to get into in point number two. So let's get to point number two. Number two, removing the Rivers of America will make Magic Kingdom measurably hotter. Now, this is not my opinion. This is science. There are plenty of scientific papers and research papers and published studies that show and prove that having water features, especially large water features like the Rivers of America, measurably cools down a space. Now, I'm going to read one particular study, just a small portion of it to you, just to show you a little bit of what science has taught us about this. So, quote, "The use of water for cooling effects decreases the air temperature by evaporation, absorption of heat, and transport of heat. The cooling effect of flowing water, unquote, flowing water such as the water created by the churning of the, oh my gosh, what's it called? Basically the Liberty Bell, not propeller. My brain is having a massive brain fart. But basically, churning up the water the way that the Liberty Bell does creates flowing water." So returning to the quote. "The cooling effect of flowing water is greater than that of water that is standing still due to the process of mixing flowing water with air and transport of heat." Picking up on the quote a little farther down. "Improving the well-being of people by reducing thermal discomfort is also a solution to preserve tourism economy during unfavorable climate conditions in the hottest months. Most likely, excessive heat would keep tourists away from some cities, especially, and they're talking about Southern Europe here because this is a European study. But yeah, it talks about how fountains and recreational water features can enhance the attractiveness of spaces as well as cooling the spaces themselves." So this, again, is just one random paper that I chose to read from because I thought it was interesting that it also had that little tidbit about tourism, something that is obviously a major factor for the Magic Kingdom. As word gets around that certain parks are the hottest parks to go to, people tend to leave those parks during parts of, especially the summer months. They'll, take a giant break during the middle of the day. And if you found ways to make these parks more adapted to these hotter temperatures, especially as it's getting hotter and hotter every year, then people might actually spend more time in the parks. They would spend more money because instead of having lunch, at an offsite hotel or grabbing fast food on the way back to their hotel or whatever it may be, they would stick around in the park longer, have lunch in the park, maybe buy more souvenirs. But no, we're going to get rid of this water feature that helps to keep the park cool enough to have people stay in that area a little bit longer, and it's going to get hotter. The same way that when you're in Hollywood Studios and you're standing in the middle of Toy Story Land in the summer and you're like, I am frying like an egg right now, look around. You'll notice there's no water around you. When I feel coolest in Epcot, I am standing right by the World Showcase Lagoon. I'm like chilling on a bench having a drink or something, and I'm feeling the breeze coming off of the water. So again, this is not my opinion. This is science. Having a big water feature, especially when you're churning the water like the Liberty Bell does for the Rivers of America, has a measurable cooling effect on the nearby areas. This is going to change if they take the Rivers of America out. If you think Magic Kingdom is hot now, it's about to get significantly hotter. So that cannot be denied. I can't speak today, but that cannot be denied. Reason number 3. It removes the only major playground and picnic area in the Magic Kingdom. Now, the last time that I was at the Magic Kingdom, I was actually walking around getting footage of the Liberty Bell and of Tom Sawyer Island because I wasn't sure if I would get to go back again before it's gone for good. And I overheard something in the line for the Haunted Mansion because I noticed it was a 13-minute wait, and I was like, I'm gonna go on. And so while we were waiting for the doors to open, I heard a couple a little ways in front of me in the crowd, and they were a little bit frustrated by how hyperactive their kid was. And the wife was saying to the husband, I'm assuming they're husband and wife, the mom was saying to the dad, I wish there was somewhere that we could take him where he could just run around for a minute. And I was not close enough to be like, yo, Tom Sawyer Island is right there. Go just like let him loose. That's the whole point. So I unfortunately didn't get to tell them that, but it definitely crossed my mind that like, wow, I'm actually here to just explore Tom Sawyer Island today and to take some pictures of it. And there's people actively commenting that they want something like Tom Sawyer Island. Later on, when I was on Tom Sawyer Island, taking my photos and whatnot, I heard multiple parents talking about how glad they were that they could just sit down for a minute and their kid could run around and let some energy out. You would think that taking your child to a theme park would exhaust them by the end of the day, and it probably does, especially because the heat and everything in Florida. But there's nothing like having a child that's super hyperactive in the middle of the day and having somewhere to just let them like buzz and take that energy out. Because standing in lines is not doing it in the same way. They will still probably crash when they get home because they've done so much throughout the whole day. But you as a parent probably could really benefit from that break of having somewhere where you can just sit and like have a bite to eat, have a drink, enjoy the scenery, have a quiet moment in the middle of a theme park day where you don't have to go through all of the walking and trekking to actually leave the park and go back to your hotel. Like there's somewhere you can go to just actually sit and have a little break, and your kid can still run around to get their energy out. That, to so many parents, is invaluable. And I think a lot of them don't even know that it's there. Like that couple that was in line for the Haunted Mansion. They didn't even seem to know that something like that was there. When I was a kid, we had the Bugs Life play area, and that doesn't exist anymore. And I remember my parents just sitting and chilling and letting us like go off and run around in there and get our energy out. And I feel like Tom Sawyer Island is like one of the last remaining versions of something like that. So when I say that I'm advocating to keep the Rivers of America, I understand that Tom Sawyer Island is a little bit outdated. A lot of kids don't get it these days. They're not really interested in an IP like that. And the thing is, I don't even think it has to be an IP. It could just be like a fun themed area. It could be anything. So retheme it for all I care. Bring new life to it. But keep that area where parents can sit and like have, maybe they packed some snacks. Maybe they packed a lunch and they're saving a couple bucks and they're going to sit and eat something, and their kid, might have 2 bites and go run around and let their energy out. I think that is a valuable part of this theme park, and I don't think something like that should go away in favor of another attraction, especially when there's room to expand. and still get that other attraction without having to remove something that does have value. I think the only reason why Tom Sawyer Island isn't more popular is because a lot of people who are fairly new to the Disney parks genuinely don't know about it. They walk right past it to go to Big Thunder. They don't see it. They don't think about it. A lot of people don't really look at park maps the way that we used to. And Tom Sawyer isn't a popular IP. So like update it, refresh it, whatever. I'm not going to be mad if you do that. But to take out the rivers, heat up the park, remove such an iconic part of the park's flow, an iconic part of Disney Castle parks, and take away that one sort of space of refuge for children, families, people like me who just like to get away and have a quiet moment every now and then. The reasons are piling up for me. So let's move on to number 4. Okay, reason number 4 why this is a big mistake is it will destroy the theming flow of the Magic Kingdom. So in this particular area of the Magic Kingdom, sort of on that side of the castle, we have the 18th century Gothic Haunted Mansion. We have the 18th century colonial Liberty Square. And then we have Frontierland, which is from like 1790 to 1880, the westward expansion of the US type of theme. And those are some fairly different areas that have to all be tied together. And it was a beautiful feat of Imagineering and design to use the Rivers of America to do that. Because you can stand in the line, in the queue at the Haunted Mansion and look across to Frontierland and it works. Like it makes sense. Even though they're, 2 different eras, 2 different themes. It flows really well. Whereas now you're telling me that I'm going to stand in the queue at the Haunted Mansion and look out and either see like some kind of wall or a bunch of trees or something because they're going to have to block it, let's be honest. Or I'm going to see a Cars attraction. It doesn't flow. It doesn't work. And even if we're not talking about the visual, like I said, they'll probably put some kind of like wall or trees or something to block the incontinuity in the theming of those 2 different things. Walking from the Haunted Mansion through Liberty Square and having cars basically start right there beside you is just a weird flow. It just doesn't make sense. And this is all besides the fact that we are putting cars and kind of stretching the theme of Frontierland to be like, well, it's modern Frontierland now, when the rest of it is not themed to modern Frontierland, let's be honest. Are they going to retheme the whole area? Is that in the budget? I don't know. It doesn't match. We now have basically thrown a newly themed area into an area that's already split into sort of 3 different themes, but in a way that works because the rivers can tie those things together. I am not convinced that I'm going to feel like I like the flow of this change when I actually get to walk through it and experience it for myself. I think it's just messing up the theming of that whole area and the way that the theming of that area flows really smoothly right now. And my 5th and final reason why this is a huge mistake to remove the Rivers of America is that it's dropping the ball on an opportunity for expansion. Especially at a time when the parks could benefit from expansion. Like, let's be honest, a lot of the many, many changes that are happening all at once at Walt Disney World right now are in an effort to combat the current realization that's happening that Epic Universe is likely going to have some kind of impact on their business. And while I'm a little bit confused about the timing, like they could have made some of these changes over the course of the past few years leading up to Epic Universe opening in 2025. Instead, they're choosing to be like, oh, well, our attendance is probably going to decline in 2025 anyway, so let's just use this year to make these changes. Like, I guess on some level that makes a little bit of logical sense, but is not the way I would have gone about it. I am obviously not a CEO. Well, I'm a CEO of my own company, but that's besides the point. I'm not a CEO of a major corporation like Disney. I am not on any major board of directors, but it seems like a weird choice to me. But all of that aside, there is a quote from Walt Disney that goes like this, quote, "Here in Florida, we have something special we never enjoyed at Disneyland, the blessing of size. There's enough land here to hold all the ideas and plans we could possibly imagine. End quote. So while yes, I know Walt was a big fan of change and evolution and always bringing new things to his parks and to the experiences that he created, 100% on board with that. Yes, that is what Walt was about. However, Walt also bought an insane amount of land in Florida for a reason. He did not seem, based on his quotes and his interviews, he did not seem to want to have to face the choices that he had to face in Disneyland, where it was like, ooh, if I want to do this, I have to remove that. He bought an insane amount of land in Florida so that he wouldn't have to face those kinds of choices of picking and choosing what's going to get removed so that new things can happen. He intended for Florida to be able to hold all of the ideas that him and his Imagineers could ever come up with. He wanted to build an entire city and still make massive theme parks that would be expanded over the years. So I don't understand why something has to go in order to have this Cars attraction, or these Cars attractions, plural. I personally believe that this is a missed opportunity to expand Hollywood studios. I think these Cars attractions, basically a Cars land, would have been a fabulous fit for Hollywood studios and could have been a great way to expand Hollywood studios. Maybe even connect two different parts of the park, because everybody complains about how weird the layout of that park is. So there's definitely opportunity to connect, like, from Rock and Roller Coaster to, I can't picture the map in my mind right now. Would that be like Animation Courtyard? Toys Land? I don't know. But the point is, there were ways that this could have improved on Hollywood studios, where the theming there is currently evolving to, instead of seeing how the movies are made, you're literally stepping into the movies. And this would have been a fantastic fit for that, in my opinion. And there is room for expansion. Everyone likes to argue the logistics of how you would expand this way or that way. Everyone's currently arguing it with the Monsters, Inc. coaster. I think, based on how Walt used to operate, Walt used to say, I want to do this. I don't care how difficult it is. I don't care what kind of obstacles there are. I don't care how much money it's going to cost. He built Disneyland in like a matter of months, which was insane. Insane. It's taken Walt Disney World like 5 or 6 years just to build the Tron coaster. And yeah, we can again argue over COVID having an effect on that. Sure. It's still insane, let's be honest. So I'm just a little bit miffed by the choices currently to be replacing things when there is so much room and opportunity for expansion. They just don't want to spend the money. Let's be honest. They just don't want to spend the money, and they could. They've made like $30 billion in profit or something crazy like that. I'll see if I can find the number and put it on the screen. But they've made insane amounts of money in profit, and they absolutely could afford to do expansions instead of replacements, and still evolve the parks and still maybe revamp those things that need revamping, retheme them if that's the best fit. But to completely get rid of such staples within the parks seems crazy to me. I don't agree with it. I think it's a mistake. I think it's going to prove to be a mistake over the coming years. I hope that I'm wrong. I hope that the Imagineers are so incredibly creative in ways that I can't even imagine, that they make cars fit in this place and find other ways to cool down the area when the heat goes up after they remove the rivers. I don't really know what's going to happen though, but this is just my personal feeling that it is a mistake. And I want to close out with a quote from Sam Clemens, one of the narrators on the Liberty Bell, who says, quote, "My feeling is, these days, there's a lot less frontier and a lot more civilization than is truly necessary." And you're invited to share your thoughts on that, as well as everything else you want to argue with me about in the comments. And I'll see you in the next one.
If you folks on deck look past the trees on the island, that's Fort Langhorne. Most of these old forts started out as trading posts. Then as settlers started heading west, the army came in and took them over. My feeling is, these days, there's a lot less frontier and a lot more civilization than is truly necessary. Give me a depth reading.